Okay, this is Mario once again with MIA Microflight, and these are some of my failed prints on this two trees Sapphire Plus version 5, version 3. It's another failed print here, and these are parts that I print just fine on my Anycubic I3 Megas. You can see this is a bunch of parts that I use for my microlights, ultralights. This is for the version 1.0 of my RC microlight. And typically all these parts that you see here, like I was saying, I print just fine on my Anycubic i3 Megas, and I wanted to give this machine a shot and see how it would do, because this machine also apparently has a glass table, but this glass table is not the same as my Anycubic i3 Megas. Maybe it has to do with the surface. I mean, the print started just fine, and this is after fiddling with the machine and the settings and the file manipulation, slicing. My first prints, the machine started doing some funky things, where it started printing these layers, kind of, it looks like very, very spongy. But I think that had to do with this screw not being tight enough to grab the filament. So I guess the filament was not pushing all the way down. But even so, these parts were coming up a lot higher than typical. So maybe that had to do with the slicing of the file. This, interestingly, this sample block that they give you printed just fine. A very nice part, and I think this is probably printed at 0.01 millimeter layer height, because this one came out very nice, no problems whatsoever. And before this printed, I noticed that the part, the head comes over here and spits out a little bit of filament before it started printing this part right here. But as we can see, you know, there is a little bit of ghosting there on the layers. So, and that, I believe, as I mentioned in my other video on this machine, has to do with is I'm moving this manually when I release the motor grip through the settings, and you can move this manually. There are some areas that I'm finding it kind of wants to engage, like going through like a pothole. Is the best way I can describe this, as you engage as you move this back and forth. And I think it maybe has to do with maybe the pulleys, the timing belt pulleys on the motors not being truly concentric with the shaft. In some areas it's kind of making it a little bit tighter and looser as the head travels via the belt tension. So I'm finding that some areas are not really true smooth and consistent. There are some little bumps here and there on the X and Y axis. I also had issues with this machine on the Z axis after going through the manual leveling, where you let me see if I can turn it on here, where you go through the manual settings on this machine. When you go, let's see, when you go point one, so point one is supposed to be on the first quadrant. There are 5 points here towards the machine. So this would be the quadrant that this would be the first quadrant right here. This would be the front left, front right, rear right, rear left, and then the center. So when I'm going through this sequence right here, and I did that on another video, so I'm not going to repeat it here. It goes to the, when I hit here, let me just try it here. So when you hit level, that should come to the first point right here, which it does, I believe. So it goes in homes. Okay, and it does come to that point right there. and then it goes, okay, go to the second point, which is that one right there. So if we go to the second point, and it does, okay. But you can see something funky is happening also with my display here. It does these lines, these weird lines, and I've had these color lines throughout the display, so I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if it's maybe a power supply issue, maybe it's not outputting the enough power. The display is getting a little funky here. Could also be the motherboard or even the firmware. So I'm going to go to level 2. Let's just assume, because I've already calibrated this machine several times, so you can see there's a little tiny gap between that nozzle and the bed. So if I were to stick a piece of paper here, that should clear it. There might be a little bit of dried up fill up PLA on the head here, so I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to go to the third point, which would be that if we kind of bypass this, overlook this little screen graphic thing here. I've seen this in computers, and that has to do with the graphics card. So let's go to the third one, which would be that one on the rear right hand side. And this should go when I press this here. And you see, it just skipped that. So it's supposed to remain there, but it skipped and it went to that one. And this machine does that often. That's why I had to do the leveling several times, because I can never get the machine to home on the right quadrant here. Without skipping some in the process of doing this. And then of course, as long as you go to the center, the next leveling point, there's a little bit of noise because it is I believe it is a little bit either the belts are too tight, or no, the belts are fine. I mean, it's about the right tension. And I'm saying this from having designed my own Core XY machines. I even have a very unique Core XY that nobody has, and I posted those videos online a while back. And so this is not my, I'm not new to these things. So I do understand the mechanics, at least from the mechanics and electronics point of view, how these machines operate. But it's doing some funky things here, and I believe this has to do now that that graphic issue disappeared here, and it gets like that. It gets a little funky when you're running this machine. The other thing that I noticed is that these machines have to be preset. The temperature has to be preset, so you have to preheat it. And I am going to preheat this as you can select the PLA. It's set to 180, and PLA 180 for the extrusion, and for the bed at 70 degrees. All my other machines run at 260 degrees Celsius. This one, for some reason, it's got that preset to 180 and 70. So I did try to run these parts at actually 70 on the bed. I made the bed a little bit hotter so the parts would retain, and I increased that to 210. 210 is where I typically run my machine, so I'm going to leave it like that. And like I said, these parts are small parts, but I have no problem printing these on my Anycubic I3 Megas. So let me go back to home here. Home, and that should home. Okay, so that should home just fine. Okay, the nozzle is hot, so I do see some filament coming out of the machine. And so let me just remove all these parts here, because these are, I mean, that's why I love my Anycubics. And I've been printing this kind of work, with all these little tiny parts on my Anycubics just fine for years, since I got them, 7 years ago. In fact, that's how this is part of my products, my radio control ultralights, microlights, and these are the parts. And this my Anycubics. I've been doing that type of work for 7 years. You know, people don't post enough about the Anycubic I3 Megas, but you know, I've been making real parts for real products on those machines with no minor adjustment and issues. I have had issues with the power supplies on the Anycubics giving out. My first Anycubic that I bought, that power supply has been running for the past 7 years. Until recently, I had to remove the power supply and change it because the capacitors finally gave out on that machine. But the newer versions of the Anycubic I3 Megas they had power supply capacitor issues on those, and so I replaced those capacitors, and they run just fine with the standard nozzles and no modifications whatsoever to the machines. You know, but this is you know, this does not feel like a glass bed. And I don't like the new beds because they have a coating there, and that coating scratches real easy. That PEI coating, I have that on my Blue Air Plus, which is printing very nice. But unfortunately, until I got it to print right, you know, that PEI coating was lifting because the nozzle was a little bit too low on my setting there until I got familiar with the machine. And same thing here, until I got this up dialed in just right on the Z-axis. After the leveling, I had to do it a few times, but on the first tries, the machine was not holding the Z level, and it was coming down a little bit lower than my setting here with the piece of paper as my gap for the filament, the proper gap that they tell you to set it. So it scratched the table. It's not major. I mean, there are no voids here. It's just a scuff on the surface. I mean, I can live with that. But my main concern is for this machine. I mean, it's a very nice machine. I mean, you just look at the machine and you can just tell, you know, from just the video. This is a solid machine. It's got the linear rails on all 3 axes, as many people have pointed out, is you know, about this machine. So from my construction point of view, it's a very nice machine. I mean, for the price too, you know, I'm not arguing I'm not complaining about the price, but I am more concerned about the firmware and the and just the workings of this machine. I think this machine, when it's set properly, this machine will probably be a very nice system here. Having designed my own Core XY machines, so I understand the benefits of Core XY versus just a standard Cartesian machine. This has a direct drive extruder, which I've had to take apart twice already. That's another thing I wanted to point out on this machine, is that I had to take it down twice. The first time it got clogged here, so I think maybe my slicing, one of the parts that I was trying to slice, maybe the extruding was backing up too far, and when I went to reinsert it in there, it's got to be so precise on this thing, because it has the tunnel where the filament goes through. It's like two V grooves that they need to match, and if that doesn't align precisely with the filament, or the filament is not inserted aligned with both the top and the in the bottom portion of that guide, it's going to get stuck and it's not going to work. So and that, if the filament comes out too far, it's going to happen, because even manually trying to find that little insert point right there was very difficult to get it exactly the same. So that's one of the issues that I had. I took that apart, and it gave me an opportunity to see how this particular pancake extruder is. They call these extruders, but I call these feeders. The extruder is actually the hot end, if you want to get really technical about it. because that's what's extruding the molten plastic through the nozzle. This is a feeding mechanism, and I wish people would use the proper terminology. You know, this feeding because it's actually feeding the material, and it's not extruding it. So yeah, so I had that, and I just reset this last night. I went through the process again. I pulled the filament. I had to pull this out, and had to redo that. And hopefully it'll stay, but I'm not sure if that has to do with the slicing software. Also, I'm not using my original slicing software that I've been using for years. It's an older version of Cura, and I use that consistently with all of my machines. I downloaded the version that comes with these machines, and that has it's a more involved settings there, and maybe I should just check the. I think the retract is set to 8 millimeters, and I think on my older slicing software I use 4 millimeters. So maybe that has to do with this. It's retracting too far, where it's pulling the filament right outside that entry point, that those two V slots there inside the cylindrical slots that are inside the feeder. And that's when this runs into problems, because it cannot grab the material back again into the proper slot, and it gets stuck right there. So I want to point that out. Okay, so let's just, since the machine is already ready, and let me reset this, go back to preheat. And I'm just going to manually set my nozzle to 210, where I typically print PLA, and my bed at 60. But I'm going to raise it to 70 because I do want the parts to grab a little bit. This machine seems to be, because maybe the bigger bed, it requires a little more heat, and maybe it's because I don't have the insulating pad that they give you here. I don't like those pads. You know, it's just another part that sticks out underneath here, kind of ugly. So I'm just going to raise the bed here 70. Oh, by the way, that pad is optional. They tell you optional, you know, if you want to keep it insulated. But I'm not, because I'm not running in a cold room, and this room is fairly warm here. So I will leave those settings at that, and let's go. This is already there. It's kind of getting close to the 70 on the bed, so we'll just wait a little bit longer here before we run this part here. Let the bed be nice and toasty, so when the filament comes on it'll grab onto the surface here. I don't have the clips here. They do give you these metal clips, and use those clips because they kind of stick. They're kind of half moons, and they stick a little bit too far inside the table. I mean, I really like having the bed nice and clean like this. On my Anycubics, there are these little rectangular clips that I use with that, and they don't take up as much room as those half moons that they give you with this machine. I mean, it's not a big deal, but it's those little things that sometimes can make a difference. Okay, so this is 5470. Honey, can you do me a favor? Can you put a little bit of that rubbing alcohol, that 90%, on a little piece of napkin or something, so I can wipe this? I can't do it myself because I'm filming this. Okay, so I asked my wife to bring me a piece of paper towel with some denatured alcohol. I'm just going to clean this, wipe this clean, super clean, because it might be. I've been handling this, and typically when you touch it,
Which one?
you get the 90% alcohol, not down. That's perasan. That's where they're on top of the other cabinet. 90% alcohol. Okay, this is coming up at 61 degrees. This machine is fluctuating actually at almost 5 degrees from the target value on my Bluer Plus. It fluctuates at 1 degree, which is a very tight. It's a very tight fluctuation there, and yeah, that's. And also this display on this one as compared to my Bluer Plus. My Bluer Plus has the more colorful display, but I did notice that the motherboard on this one is a version 3.0. That's good. This motherboard is 3.0, and the Bluer Plus is 1.2, I think. So I'm assuming this is a much more up-to-date display. It's not as colorful as the other one, but like I said, I've been having issues with the display showing those graphical things there. Okay, those that cloudy surface that you see here is for me running the alcohol on the surface. So I don't know if this has some kind of a rubber coating on top of the glass. I mean, I did pull out the maybe I should just clean it really well here, because I did pull out the sticky paper and maybe left a residue here, because it feels a little gummy for some reason. So I'm going to try to clean it a little bit better here. See if I can do this with one hand. Okay. Denatured alcohol here. It is making this table really cloudy. Almost like it's almost the surface beginning to look like my phenolic sheets that I use on some other printers. I use phenolic sheets, to print over, and those print just fine too. But I do have to sand them, and when I sand those phenolic sheets, they look almost similar to this surface here. It's looking, but I think that's I think I remove any fingerprints or any maybe oily surfaces there. Okay, so this should be at 70 to 10. Okay, now we can start the print here. And I'm going to try to print my file here, which is showing up with an image, which is I really like this the image that comes with the file when you slice it using a slicer that's been set up to include the code for the graphics. So I'm gonna try to do this part again and see if it'll do that, because I mean, that's the purpose of having a machine this big, is for it to print all these parts in one shot. Not in one shot, but in as many parts on the table, although this is a very shallow part here. Okay, so it's spitting a little bit of I'm going to erase this manually just a little, because I do that same thing on my Anycubic. Okay, so it's dropping the filament. It's dropping the filament just fine this time. Okay, this could use a little bit of adjustment here, so I am going to raise this. Okay, and this kind of skip right here, you see that little hair right there? So that means that did not grab. So let me see, how is my height there? My height there could be adjusted too. So I'm adjusting these heights kind of manually. for the first, I think it's going to run like three layers. And that one, okay, so that's following the same path. Okay, so that looks like it's sticking, because that's important for the first layer to stick, because if the first layer doesn't stick, forget it. There's no point in continuing to print. So this is a little bit loose right here on this side. Okay, so now we have these little tiny parts. Let's see how this machine does with those little tiny parts there. Nope, there's a gap. There's a gap between the Okay, I am going to stop this. This is going to be a long video, but I just want to show the process that I'm doing this, the process I'm going through, so it's clear in this video what's going on here. So I'm going to stop this, and I'm going to go through the leveling again. So confirm, and I'm going to tell it to go. Well, it's going to go home. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go through the leveling once again. I'm going to say home all, which is it's right now it's just part with a gap between the bed and the nozzle. So I'm going to tell it to go home. Okay, then I want to go level first point. Boom. Okay, and when it prints with a gap. Now it looks like it looks like it doesn't have a gap between the nozzle and the bed, and sure enough, it doesn't. So I'm going to have to bring this down, shove the paper there. Okay, that's they tell you to. Okay, that's a little bit snug. But let's go back here. Make sure the paper's okay. That's a little snug right there. Okay, so now I'll go to second level. I actually went to the third one. So this is like very sensitive for some reason. Let's see. Okay, so go to the second point. Boom. That should go to the second without skipping. Okay, so far, and that's tight. So let me lower this. That's a little too tight. Right there. Right there. Okay, so go to the third level. The third point, rather. That should not skip. That one's fine. Go to the fourth. That one's fine. Now go to the fifth, which is the center. It's a little bit loose, but I'm going to leave it there. Okay. All right, so now that we've gone through here, I'm going to say just go back and go home. Okay, and it's doing its thing. Let me pull this out of here and pull these pieces that got printed here. I should use my, okay. All right, so now let's go through the same part again. Go home or preheat bed to 60, 70. I'll put it at 70. Nozzle at 210 rather. 210. Come on, calibrate. All right, so back. That's coming up to temperature. So 166, 63 on the bed. Target 210, 70 on the bed. already. There we go. Okay, that's better. All right, so I'm going to leave it at that zoom setting so that I can see what's going on here once I hit the print. Okay, 79. Okay, I'm going to start it because that's very close to 70 here. So print, grab that file, grab this file with all the parts that have been messing up on the other prints. So confirm that. Confirm. The image comes up here. That gives you how many hours it's going to take to print this. The height 0.2, 14 is the highest. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. So yeah, I do see that there's a gap between the table and the nozzle. For some reason, it's the setting in the leveling is not the same as this, because now there's a much bigger gap there. And where is the filament? Where is the filament? No filament being deposited. So I am going to have to stop this because I bet you the filament is stuck already right there. I think it retracted again what I was saying earlier in my video. So I'm going to stop this. Okay. Confirm. I'm stopping this. Confirm it. And I'm going to manually extrude some filament and see if it comes out, or if we hear some noises of the yeah. So let's go back, and in order not to lose my settings here, let me go back to my preheat. Let's go back here to my extrusion. Let's go back to 210 here. Leave it at that because we want to extrude manually the bed at 70 as before. Okay, we'll hold that for a little bit, and then I'll do my extrusion here. Yeah, it's beeping because the filament's out of the sensor.